Kia ora guys, good evening and welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max and I'm the host of this channel. Thank you very much to my patrons and returning subscribers for your ongoing support. Today I'm going to talk about the Rugby Championship, who I think will place where, and a couple of pros and cons of all of the teams going into the competition. As I said before, a big thank you to my patrons, and let's get on to who I think is going to place first. It's South Africa. Going into the tournament, Jacques Nienaber finally blooded some new players, including Evan Roos. Jaden Hendricks got a few starts at 9, and we saw a lot of new players come in, get their shot, and quite a few of them impressed me very much after I watched the highlights between them and Wales, particularly the fact that Damian Willemse, who's kind of been just underneath the surface for a few years, was able to finally come along, show his talent, and kick a winning goal. Willemse, I think, is quite easily going to start at 15. Francois Steyn, I'm not sure why they're recalling him, because Willie Leroux appears to be the guy that's going to be in that utility role off the bench these days. But South Africa's forward pack remains the bright, shining light that it's always going to be. They've got Ox Enchir, Bongi Mbanambi, Malcolm Marx, Stephen Kitsoff, who I think is their best lucid. They've got Franz Malherbe at tight head. They've got Trevor Nyakane. They've got an all-star front row, backed up by the experience of Luz de Jager, even Etzebeth Franco Mostert, even with RG Snyman out. That's still a very formidable tight 5. Dwayne Vermeulen is back, but I do think Jasper Wiese is the top pick at 8. But regardless of who they're going to get out of that mob, it's still a very strong tight 5. Jacques Nienaber has not innovated a lot though as their head coach, so I do think this is going to be their peak ahead of the World Cup. Every World Cup cycle, every team has a peak that they reach, and then they kind of come down from that. I think winning the Rugby Championship and the Freedom Cup is going to be the it's going to be the peak of the Nienaber era as the Springbok coach. And I think the Springboks are going to win because they have the best tight 5 out of all the teams in this competition. They're very well drilled, though they're going to be too old for the World Cup next year, I believe. They are going to bring some strong physicality, and the fact that they have 2 tests at home to kick things off is going to work so vehemently in their favour. I'm going to go to the bottom of the list now, and I think a lot of people knew I was going to say this. I think it's going to be Argentina, because simply put, Michael Cheika is not a very good coach, and it's a bit of the same old in terms of the players. Like Augustine Creevy, for example, is getting on, but he's got a recall. I mean, he did score a lot of tries in the English Premiership this last season, but is going back to older players really the solution for what's going on? You know, Nicolas Sanchez, they still haven't quite identified a long-term replacement for him after he hangs up the boots. Emiliano Buffali, Pablo Matera, Julian Montoya, Guido Piatti, Matias Alemano, a lot of those players from the Daniel Horkada era still remain with the team. Mario Ledesma, things kind of did stagnate under him, as I don't think he was quite ready to be a head coach for a tier 1 nation, and he was kind of parachuted into that job just less than a decade after he hung the boots up himself. Cheika, though, I don't think is any better than Ledesma was. Ledesma was the assistant coach for Australia under Cheika, and though Cheika got a bit of revival to the Wallabies going and got them to the 2015 World Cup final, long term I think he probably did a bit more damage to the Australians in the long term, as I said. Like, Cheika is a very smart person. He's on these shows like Stan Sport, breaking down plays, using his intelligence, but I don't quite think the guy applies it enough. For example, in the 2019 World Cup, he cited the fact that he had not done research on his opposition, and you just can't do that in such a big tournament. He's fluent in multiple languages. Spanish is one of them, but under Michael Cheika, I don't see anything changing for Los Pumas. The fact that the Jaguares are no longer in Super Rugby as well is likely to weaken the team's cohesion. Like in 2020, they had all that time in lockdown, bonding over Zoom sessions, things like that, but 2021, we saw them all go to different clubs. They remain in various different clubs. Up here, I've got the list of what players in what club, and it's not massively dominated by a single club, as they're pretty much all overseas. And with these same old players, I think the solution to getting yourself out of the rut is to turn to the next generation. And with the selections that Cheika's made, I don't think we're going to see much difference. We're going to see some big hits on defense, but eventually I think fitness will run out. And I think Los Pumas are probably going to be lucky to win a game, to be honest. Now, over to second and third place. A lot of people are very familiar with the fact that I'm not a big fan of Ian Foster, and that's why I think the All Blacks are going to be in third place. We can absolutely get the 2 wins against Argentina on our home turf. I do think we are going to retain the Bledisloe Cup, because let's face it, the Wallabies choke every time they play us. But with a start with 2 tests against the Springboks, it's going to be pretty brutal. And with Jason Ryan as the new forwards coach, he's very good at what he does, but I can't help but have a negative feeling that, the boys are going to have some pretty basic passions with the new guy having just come in, whereas Ian Foster's pretty much going to run the backs himself with Brad Moore sacked. He and John Plumtree were pretty much scapegoats, and I think a lot of the coaches should have gone, not just shift blames onto 2 particular people, because accountability in the realm of sports is so massive. I'm going to be accountable right here to you guys. I wouldn't have made the All Blacks because my ball handling wasn't good enough. And you've got to know your own limitations. The way things are coming across right now, I don't think New Zealand rugby seems to understand the limitations of having Fozzie as the head coach, and we've got an excellent squad. I mean, Will Jordan's out there, Geordie Barrett, the backline's solid, but the tight 5 forwards, please, somebody turn us to the next generation. I sound like a broken record talking about the All Blacks tight 5 forwards. And with what we've got, I think we're going to lose 3 games, 2 to South Africa, 1 to the Wallabies, and that is going to cause us to be third place. Australia, now let's move on to them. Speaking of the devil, I think the English series would have disappointed them very much in terms of the points on the board, but in terms of psychology, I think that would have done a bit of a boost up for the boys, as they did beat England for the first time since 2015's World Cup in Perth in the first test of that 3-test series. Rob Valentini and Rob Leota were looking so powerful with ball in hand. Taniela Tupou's been back playing for multiple weeks now, so he'll be feeling ready to go for the Rugby Championship. It was good to have a look at David Parecki as an emergency option for hooker as well, whereas it was also quite nice to see Caden Neville get a go. Michael Hooper's got a lot of caps to his name, whereas that backline's looking pretty solid, and I think that, as I said before, that England series was perhaps the final road bump in an upwards trajectory. I'm looking forward to reviewing and dissecting the tactics for all of these teams after their matches throughout the season. Fingers crossed the videos can remain up on YouTube, as Sanzar does run at the Rugby Championship, and fingers crossed the 20-minute red card isn't going to be too much of a controversy throughout the series. So yeah, guys, to recap what I've said throughout this video, Los Pumas 4th, All Blacks 3rd, Wallabies 2nd, and the Springboks, I think, are going to win, and then they'll fall off and get eliminated in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. If you're a Springbok supporter, message your support to your boys. Do the same if you're a Pumas fan, an All Blacks fan, and a Wallabies fan. The Rugby Championship is going to be very interesting. I won't be able to review the test matches in this weekend, as I am shooting my own short film, but I hope you guys enjoy the games very much. After the first 2 rounds, I'm going to dissect everything that's happened, and I'll see you when it's time for that to happen. Thank you for watching my videos, guys, and a big ups to my patrons. Make sure to support me over on Instagram and my own website to see my independent journalism, and make sure to leave a like, subscribe to me, and leave a second comment just for the algorithm. Cheers, guys. Much appreciated.